What's up, Mirandigas? We're back with another Persona video. So, like a lot of people say Persona 3 Reload is too green and stuff like that, but I feel like there are some gameplay like elements that are missing the game that are questionable as to why they are missing. Now, I want to theorize, I want to talk about maybe that's the reason these mechanics are missing in the game. You know what? Just let's go. So, one of the few mechanics that I've talked about is follow-up attacks. Now, in Persona 3 Portable, these attacks were co-op attacks. Basically, what follow-up attacks are, if you have forgotten or never played Persona or like the modern Persona, basically when you're hitting a enemy's weakness or like you crit them and down them, like there's a chance that one of your allies would come and be like, "Hey, can I attack?" And they would attack the enemy that isn't knocked and would knock them down. This is a mechanic that exists. Persona 3 Portable had it. Later down the line, Golden and 5 had it, but they were like social link buffs. So, and in 5, Confidants is the correct terminology. But those were the buffs that were used, and then you could unlock follow up attacks for the respective characters. So this is something that is a mechanic that has been in Persona games for a long time, and this isn't like a thing. Like I have seen a lot of people say that the reason they're not in Persona 3 Reload is because they never existed in Persona 3 Portable or FES. Or like I've seen a lot of people say that the reload was taken from the FES version, which is also incorrect. If reload had taken like as like inspiration or the gameplay mechanics from FES version, then we wouldn't see like the Makoto in the FES version has multiple weapons. We wouldn't see that. Like we would actually see that in reload rather than like Makoto having one weapon, which we didn't see that in reload. And in portable, Makoto has one weapon, like the protagonist named Makoto. So this is one of those things where I tend to believe is that them removing this is either they had a reason, or it's this same thing where they were not like they were shocked that reload did so well. They did not expect reload to do so well. The other mechanic is, so I try to search for this mechanic, but I just never find it. As far as I remember, it's called the mortal blow mechanic. When I search on Google, I don't see it, but when I search Akechi saves Joker, I remember Fawaz's video, and this comes up. So this is also one of the mechanics, and this is one of the few mechanics that exist. Is like sometimes, like when the protagonist is about to die, like, and if you have a higher social link, and a lot of times, like one of your party members will save the protagonist and take the blow. There's also other mechanics where what will happen is if your protagonist or other characters are in an ailment, or in some cases in P4 if they're downed, like the other characters would come up and help. If the character, like if one of the characters down, then the other characters will come up and pick one of the party members up. Or if one of the characters has an ailment, let's just assume like if someone is charmed, what will happen is like one of the in P5 they have this fan thing, forgot, like a hand fan, and they'll hit the protagonist, hit one of the characters to remove their ailment. And in Persona 4, like Yukiko would just slap the ailment out, or other characters will do their own thing. So this is one of the things where they completely remove that in Reload, and this I think is one of the mechanics which I feel like them removing actually does kind of hurt the game rather than kind of just makes it just makes the game a bit more how unfun, I feel like, because follow-up attacks are cool and all, but I feel like I can understand why they removed them. But these mechanics do feel like they were like putting a lot of life into the game, but then Reload just suddenly said cut it off, and we're like, yeah, let's remove these mechanics. And the reason I put the mortal blow mechanic here is that the mortal blow mechanic actually does exist in portable. So them removing that is one of the other things that they removed from portable that was supposed to be in reload and should have been in reload. Now I have a theory as to why they did that, and it's possible that this is something they're developing for the future of Persona games. Um, Teurgis is a new mechanic in Persona 3 Reload, and if I have to compare them to another mechanic from another Persona game, I have to say they're basically Showtime, but better, or I should say no, like you can make the argument which one is better, but they're Showtime mechanics, but you have more free will than like Showtime mechanics. So the Showtime mechanic, it's one of the mechanics. It's like an ultimate move one of the characters can do, like two characters can do. It's like a duo ultimate move, and it's like when you have it, if you don't use it, it's gone. It's not gone forever. You can still get it again, but if you have it in the fight and you don't use it, it's gone until you get it again. TUGs, however, is they have a bar and each character has their personality and this bar fills up. The thing is, when this bar fills up, if you want to use it, you can use it or you can save it. Yeah, if you leave Tartarus or like, if you leave one of the full moon operations, the TUG will go away. But again, you still are like, you have the ability to save it or use it. So this is one of the things that I want to talk about is these two mechanics. Now I gotta explain them well. Is that the TUG mechanic and the Showtime mechanic? The Showtime mechanic is very auto heavy as it's not in your control, the player's control, whereas the TUG is in the player's control. And I feel like that is something that Atlus might be trying to do with these mechanics overall, is that the Mortal Blow mechanic, you have control over it in an aspect that if you rank up the social links and confidants, you get it. But the problem is, it's a mechanic that I feel like you don't have more control over it. Rather, it's a mechanic that just happens to be there as like a safekeeping. Like, here you go, you were about to die, boom, you were saved. So I feel like that's something that Atlus, I feel like maybe is trying to remove to make the game more free for the player or more manual for the player rather than being just an auto thing where, hey, you were about to die, but the game saved you. And I think that's also the reason they didn't do follow-up attacks, is because they're also doing something with follow-up attacks. And that's, I think, it was because follow-up attacks was always like you hit a crit or you downed an enemy and the other character would be like, hey, you probably might not know this enemy's weakness, but hey, I'm here. Or maybe this enemy does not have a weakness. I'm here, I can crit it for you. And then, it's one of those things where it's also an auto mechanic. You just been saved. You were just been saved. And it's one of those things where you don't have control over it. You technically do, because you can like crit or like hit the weaknesses. It's like a mechanic which is like you hit a weakness and it gives you a reward. It's a rewarding mechanic. But again, I feel like these two mechanics were not made in the Modern Reload game, is because like Atlus is like, maybe it's a too auto mechanic and we want to do it like a manual mechanic. Now, if they want to do that, I feel like that's a good argument for them not having them in Reload, even though I think they should have just keep the auto mechanic and then maybe, in the future Persona game add a manual one. But if that's the case, what can they do? So we have TUGs. TUGs have this bar. Each character have their personalities, and TUGs increase. Like you can see, it's right here written: personality after summoning a persona, power within gradually enhances. Yukari has like a healing thing, and every character has their own, personality, and that's how the TUG gauge increases faster. They can normally increase, but they can also, if you focus on the personality, they can increase way faster, which I think is a pretty good mechanic. Now, I feel like they could do something similar with the protagonist maybe has multiple bars, and if you can like maybe 2 bars, one for the ultimate special and the other for like these mechanics. Maybe a bar you have, and maybe you're thinking, okay, I am very close to death, and right now I don't like, if I'm maybe like you have your ultimate bar ready to go, or maybe it's close to ready, so you're thinking, okay, I'm this close to dying, but if I get my ultimate, maybe I can, change the tide of the fight, or maybe I could win. I just need one extra turn. But to get that extra turn, you need to, hope that maybe Yukari comes in and saves the protagonist, and Yukari takes the blow, and the protagonist lives, and you can use the TUG or your ultimate. Or, that's like a, chance, a luck chance. Though, in a lot of cases, the AI just saves the protagonist. Or you have this bar and you like have an extra bar and you're like, okay, I want to use this bar and I want Akihiko to defend the protagonist. I want Akihiko to defend the protagonist. When I get hit, he takes the blow. I get my TUG, I get my ultimate, I use that ultimate, and then I win. So I feel like this is something they want to add, and this can add a lot more elements of strategy where, rather than it's a luck based mechanic, even though I won't say it's that luck, like 90%, 95% of the time, the protagonist is saved by their, party members. So this is something they can do. Now, that being said, if this is the mechanic they want to add, I don't mind that, but I think now is the time to talk about it, is that they should remove this stupid, idiotic mechanic that exists in basically Persona 3, 4, 5. Persona 1 and 2 does not have it. So basically what I'm talking about is, as you can see, like in this picture, there are 4 party members. 3 of them are alive. The protagonist loses, and obviously you can't see it here, but game over. The game is over. This is a dumb mechanic, which I've seen a lot of people defend and argue that it's because he's the leader, maybe they can't do anything without it, but it's a stupid mechanic that lore-wise doesn't even make sense. Now, you can make one argument, which I think have people made, is that you have direct commands over other characters and you're telling them what to do, like Pokemon. Like Joker is the protagonist, and Morgana, Haru, and Ryuji on this screen are like Pokemon. You're telling them to attack and stuff like that. But here's the thing. There's a thing called an auto, like you can auto set presets of characters attacking. So what I think they should do, if they like completely remove this, like when the protagonists die, game over shouldn't happen. But if they want to make it interesting and add some element of fear or add some element of risk that, hey, the protagonists die, now, the tides of fights are changing. Why not, as they have given TUGs, right here, TUGs their own personality, every character has personality, like Yukari is like a healer and Akiko like stuff like that. Everybody has their own personalities. Why not add something like this? So the Joker, like if Joker dies, all your characters, like all your party members are now on auto. But they're not just randomly doing stuff. It's like if you have, let's just say Morgana. Morgana is like a healer, right? So Morgana actions will be mostly healing. Now, what does that mean? It's like if you have Morgana on your team, Morgana will be try to get revive Joker as quickly as possible. But then you have something like Yusuke. Yusuke is like a damage dealer, offensive beast. So if you have Yusuke in your party member and he's on auto, what Yusuke will do is actually just attack the enemy with the most heaviest hits ever. So I feel like this is something they should do, and just remove the game over thing. That sucks. That's terrible game design. I don't like. Some people might argue that it adds a challenge. If they want to do that, there's a thing called Merciless. Add that there. This is I feel like this is such a dumb mechanic and a very outdated mechanic, even though this was not in Persona 1 and 2 and exists in modern Persona games. This shouldn't exist. And one of those things is a lot of people might not like this idea, because I feel like a lot of people don't like the concept of accessibility in a lot of games, because they do believe that certain games, should have, if a game gets way famous, it's not good anymore. A lot of people believe that. But for the sake of accessibility, I feel like this mechanic should be completely removed. It's a stupid mechanic. It doesn't make sense lore-wise, nothing. If they want to add the whole direct commands thing, just remove the direct commands when the protagonist dies and everybody's just acting on their own basis based on their personality, which I feel like is a very good and better mechanic, rather than, hey, the protagonist got hit, game over. And as far as I've heard, like in Persona 5, I don't know in Reload, in Persona 5, there's a thing where they have lowered the chance of the enemy attacking the protagonist, as far as I've heard. So it's one of those things, like in older Persona games, the enemy would just decide, yeah, I'm going to hammer down the protagonist. I'm going to attack the main character. Like, this has happened to me in P4, where I was in Yukiko's dungeon, and for some reason, every enemy I fight was like, yeah, we're just going to attack the main character. We don't care. We're just going to attack the main character, and they were just hammering down and killing him. And I feel like this is something that does exist. Even if you lower the chance, you can get unlucky. And what could happen is, like, the enemies could just decide, yeah, we're just going to start killing the main character. So I feel like this is a dumb mechanic that they should completely remove. But tell me in the comments below, Do you think Persona is going for a more manual approach, more tactical approach rather than a more auto approach? Do you think if they're gonna do that, it's a good thing? Tell me in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, click on the bell. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. See you guys next time with another Persona Shin Megami Dragon Ball Fate of Water video. Consider subscribing. Looking here to stop recording. Bye 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 bye.